Thank you. I'm here as a consumer advocate. I smoked for 33 years and I quit smoking using vapes. I also use nicotine pouches. And on behalf of consumers, I'd like to say this report is quite important. It's a review of the evidence. It draws on academic research to gather that evidence. And the figures, as we heard gone through earlier, are quite stark. Kazakhstan, 165,000, 320,000, 920,000, 1.2 million lives. These are big figures that could be saved if we had better regulation of less harmful nicotine products. And these figures should excite the WHO and NGOs that are dedicated to eradicating the harms of combustible tobacco use. But for some reason, they're determined to ignore them. We know, again, as the report mentions, Japan, Sweden, UK, they've all had dramatic declines in smoking due to these products. So we know harm reduction works. It's in the evidence, we can see it. As again mentioned earlier, 80% of people who smoke are in lower middle income countries, and that's the WHO's own statistic. So what's happening? Let's take two examples. At the moment, in India, there are 100 million smokers and 200 million of the citizens there use other tobacco products, lethal tobacco products. Yet vapes are banned. Nicotine pouches are being opposed, despite being far safer than the lethal oral products used by millions of people in India. Worse, India has banned research into safer products. It's made possession of vaping products a crime and recently told an organisation which held a discussion about vaping that they had broken the law. In South Africa, new proposed legislation not only puts huge obstructions in the way of harm reduction, but also makes an offence for a consumer advocate to make a positive statement about switching from smoking to a smoke-free product, punishable by a maximum penalty of 10 years imprisonment. The WHO is eagerly cheering on this madness. It seems to have lost its moral parameters when it comes to harm reduction. We know that policies in countries where harm reduction is regulated sensibly see faster declines in smoking prevalence than where it's not. The evidence is clear that the WHO and tobacco control industry refuses to acknowledge it. As Kosi mentioned, the FCTC treaty includes harm reduction in its preamble. The WHO and many public organisations, though, are set on a policy of harm maximisation, not harm reduction. The WHO's preferred outcome in Panama at COP10 is that countries ban all alternative nicotine products outright, leaving combustible tobacco as the only legal nicotine product. This is patently absurd. And the only possible outcome of such regulations would be to protect the sale of cigarettes. Whether the WHO likes to think of it like that or not, that's basically what's happening. International treaties are supposed to have aims. They have three aims. They're meant to make sure that countries sign up to them. They're meant to make sure that the countries that are signatories to the treaties are implementing the policies that come out of the decisions for the treaty. But they're also supposed to measure outcomes and see if those policies are actually working. The WHO's FCTC treaty does the first two, but it's not too worried about the outcomes. Its empower policies are just box ticking. Taxation, you can apply taxation, you can apply smoke-free regulations, you can do all that. But if it's not actually doing anything good for outcomes, then it's not having any decent effect. In 2003, when the FCTC treaty was written, there were 1.1 billion people smoking. Now, 20 years later, as we have heard, there are 1.27 billion. Now, some of that can be explained by rises in population figures, but it's clear that FCTC's current approach is not making a big dent in smoking-related diseases and smoking prevalence. You can't restrict and ban your way out of a market for nicotine, which has existed for 12,000 years and for which there's still a huge demand. It's naive and foolhardy for the WHO to think it can. As a consumer, I know all about the WHO's own Ottawa Charter, which declares that the public has a right to opportunities and resources to enable all people to achieve their fullest health potential. Yet the WHO is working to remove access to safer products for those of us who have quit smoking using them and for people who currently smoke. The Charter further states that people cannot achieve their fullest health potential unless they're able to take control of those things which determine their health. Yet we have no control over what the WHO FCTC process decides because the public is barred from participating or even observing. It's well past time the WHO FCTC took notice and listened to the public it's supposed to be serving. Of all stakeholders, consumers are the most affected. We advocate because we know what worked for us and want to share that experience with others. Consumers are the most powerful voice in this debate. We should be included in the discussions. We're passionate, we are committed, and we know we are on the side of the angels. The evidence in favour of harm reduction is increasing with every passing month. This report adds yet more to the armoury that consumers can point to in making our case, and we will continue to do so, despite WHO's policies. Thank you very much.